Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've worked at the music store for 5 years now. I started after graduating with my music education degree, thinking it would be temporary while I looked for teaching positions. But being surrounded by instruments all day kept me here longer than I planned. We do sales, rentals, repairs, and lessons. Most days are routine, but sometimes we get customers that make me question humanity. Last October was my most memorable encounter. I was working a Tuesday shift when a family of three walked in. You could feel the tension between them. The dad had a scowl on his face, while the mom tried to keep their hyperactive kid under control. The kid, about 10, was bouncing everywhere, running to the pianos and slamming on the keys. I greeted them and asked how I could help. The mom said they wanted to rent a trumpet for their son, who was joining the school band. I led them to our rental section and explained our programs while the kid ran between instrument stands. I told them our trumpet rental was $26 a month before tax, with $20 going toward equity if they decided to purchase later, and $6 covering the liability damage waiver for any damage, loss, or theft. The mom nodded along. The dad looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. When I mentioned the damage waiver, he perked up. He asked if the waiver was optional, saying it sounded like a scam. I said it was optional but recommended it, explaining that without it, they'd be responsible for the full repair cost if anything happened to the instrument. The dad said nothing would happen to it and refused to pay extra for what he called nonsense. This made me uneasy. I looked at the kid, who was trying to play a trombone without knowing how to hold it. My gut told me this trumpet wouldn't last a week. When I started the paperwork, the dad checked his watch repeatedly. He complained it was taking forever and said he was going to Home Depot to get his tools. The mom asked if he couldn't just wait a few more minutes. He refused and told her to grab the kid and meet him at Home Depot when they finished. He walked out. The mom gave me an apologetic look. She said sorry for his behavior. I smiled and finished the rental. After she left with the trumpet and her son, I told my co-worker I bet they'd be back soon with a damaged trumpet and no damage waiver. My co-worker laughed. 3 days later, I was working with my manager when the dad burst through our doors. His eyes had dilated pupils and he held the trumpet, no longer in its case. The lead pipe was bent at nearly a 45-degree angle and the bell had a massive dent. It looked like it had been run over. The dad said we rented them a defective trumpet. My manager asked what happened to the instrument. The dad said nothing happened, claiming our instruments were fragile. He said he worked in construction and that metal doesn't bend when dropped. This was nonsense. Even professional instruments can dent if dropped, and student models are more vulnerable. My manager asked if he had signed up for the liability damage waiver. The dad said no, he didn't want to pay for anything but the rental fee. My manager told him he was responsible for the repair costs, as he agreed to this when he signed the rental agreement. Then things got worse. The dad grabbed my manager by the wrist, squeezing until she winced. He said the customer is always right and demanded a new trumpet. Before I could react, he slapped my manager across the face hard enough that she staggered. I lunged forward, grabbed him by the chin and throat, and slammed him to the floor. I told him he chose not to get the damage waiver, that he damaged the trumpet, and that he shouldn't put his hands on anyone in the store. I said I'd call the police if he didn't leave. I held him down, but not too hard. For a moment I thought he might fight back, but he just got up when I let go. He walked out, flipping us off and leaving the trumpet behind. After he left, I asked my manager if she was okay and needed medical attention. She said she was all right and thanked me, but we needed to report this to corporate. I worried I'd lose my job for confronting a customer, but corporate supported us after seeing the security footage. The man had assaulted my manager first and my response was reasonable. The next day, my manager called to say the mom had contacted the store. She said sorry for her husband's behavior and explained she was filing for divorce due to his drug use and abuse. She later bought an affordable trumpet for her son. Since the rental was on the dad's card and he left the damaged instrument, the repair costs were charged to him the next month. When he called about the charge, our district manager told him he was banned from all our stores and that we filed a police report. 6 months later, the mom and son came for valve oil. The kid was calmer and showing progress with the trumpet. She said they moved to a new apartment, finished the divorce, and her ex had to attend rehab for his domestic violence charges. I wonder if that broken trumpet helped give her the courage to leave. I ended up spending 8 weeks of my life clicking a button over and over just to get back at someone. But that's exactly what happened with the woman I'll call the know-it-all. 5 years ago, I was part of this awkward foursome that would hang out together. It wasn't my choice. My best friend was friends with her best friend, so we often got dragged into the same social events. From the start, the know-it-all made it clear she didn't think much of me. When I tried talking to her, she'd cut me off or make some snide comment that made me feel stupid. She had to be the smartest person in any conversation. If I mentioned the book I read, she'd read a more obscure, intellectually superior version. If I talked about a movie I enjoyed, she'd roll her eyes and explain why her taste in cinema was more refined. I remember this one night at a restaurant where I was excited about getting accepted into a graphic design program. I told everyone about receiving my acceptance letter that day and how excited I was to start the program next semester. The know-it-all asked if graphic design was basically just playing with Photoshop. She added that she had considered it once but decided on something more intellectually challenging instead. My best friend tried to smooth things over, but the damage was done. I spent the rest of the night quietly picking at my food. When our best friends drifted apart, so did we. I didn't have to deal with her condescending attitude anymore, and I soon forgot about her. Life moved on. I finished my design program and started building my career. Last year, I joined this huge Facebook group for fans of this fantasy book series that had just been adapted into a Netflix show. The community was supportive, creative, and kind. After lurking for a while, I posted photos of my cosplay. I'd worked hard on the costume of one of my favorite male characters from the series, spending weeks on the armor details and practicing the makeup to get the scars right. The response was positive, with people asking about my techniques and complimenting the craftsmanship. Then I saw it, a comment that stood out from all the supportive ones. The know-it-all had left a mocking comment asking who told me my makeup looked good and adding a laughing emoji about a girl trying to cosplay a male character. I recognized her profile picture. Of all the fan groups in all the world, she had to be in mine. I decided to be mature about it and replied, greeting her and mentioning that I thought we used to hang out years ago through our friends. I asked how she had been. Her response came quickly. She was surprised at realizing it was me and commented that it was a small world. She bragged about doing amazing and having just won a regional art competition. Then she asked if I was still doing whatever that is. I responded that was great for her and confirmed that I was still designing and cosplaying, adding that it had been a fun creative outlet for me. She didn't respond after that. When I checked later, I realized she had blocked me. I hadn't even said anything rude. It was bizarre but not surprising given her personality. I didn't think about her again until about 3 months later when I was scrolling through Facebook and saw a post shared by someone who must have been her husband. It was asking for votes in this big social media contest called Influencers with Impact. The know-it-all had somehow made it to the top 50 contestants, and the grand prize was $25,000. I clicked through to check out her contest profile. Her self-written bio described her as a beacon of positivity in the online space and claimed she was known for creating judgment-free communities where everyone feels welcome. There was even a line about how she lifts other women up rather than tearing them down. This was the same person who had publicly mocked my cosplay and had spent years making me feel inferior every chance she got. As I was about to close the page, I noticed something interesting about the contest rules. You could vote against contestants multiple times per day, every day, for the remaining 8 weeks of the competition. The contestants with the lowest numbers would be eliminated in phases. I'm not usually a petty person, but something about seeing her try to win $25,000 and a platform as Miss Non-Judgmental when she was exactly the opposite struck a nerve. So I made a decision. Every morning before work, I'd vote against her. During my lunch break, more votes. Before bed, another round of votes. I set reminders on my phone and never missed a day for 8 solid weeks. Around the 4th week, I checked the standings and saw she had dropped from the top 10 to the bottom 20. By the end of the 5th week, she had been eliminated from the competition due to insufficient support. Her husband's next Facebook post was a rant about how the contest must have been rigged because someone as genuine and kind as her couldn't possibly have lost fairly. I never told anyone what I did. It wasn't about getting credit. It was just about making sure that someone who built herself up by tearing others down didn't get rewarded for pretending to be something she wasn't. So, know it all, if you're reading this and recognize yourself, now you know why your influencers with impact dream fell apart. Maybe next time try actually being the kind, non-judgmental person you claim to be online. And for what it's worth, my Witcher cosplay was awesome. I worked at this fast food place for 2 years. A temporary job to pay for college became full-time after I got good at training new employees. The turnover rate is high, so management likes anyone who can help newbies survive their first weeks. I've worked every station, so I train everyone. Last Tuesday, I supervised our latest batch of new hires. One was a 16-year-old girl with blonde hair and a bubbly personality. She learned the register quickly. I was at the register next to hers, watching her while handling my customers. After lunch rush, this guy walked in. He looked about mid-20s, wearing a wrinkled button-up shirt with a smirk on his face. He went to the new girl's register, ignoring my empty line. At first, everything seemed normal. She greeted him and he ordered. But then he asked for her phone number. The new girl said no, mentioned she was seeing someone, and asked if he wanted his meal large. The guy made a crude comment about giving it rather than buying it. I finished with my customer and started paying attention to them. The new girl asked if he wanted any sides. He replied with another inappropriate comment, suggesting he wanted her as a side and making a vulgar remark about making a meal out of her. I asked if she needed me to step in. She told me she was okay but asked me to stay nearby, which I would. The creep noticed our exchange and asked if I was her boyfriend. She told him no, but said he was making her uncomfortable, pointing out the age difference and calling his behavior creepy. Most people would take the hint. Not this guy. He told her that dealing with his advances was part of customer service and insisted she give him her number so he could pick her up later. I stepped forward and told him I wouldn't allow him to interact with her anymore. He could either complete his order with me for takeaway or leave. The new girl stepped back and I took her place. The creep's face twisted with anger as he complained about my intervention, suggesting that as both guys I shouldn't be blocking him. I told the new girl to go to the kitchen and take a break. When she left, I told the creep that he had no right to make my team uncomfortable. While he could order food, continued harassment would mean he'd have to leave. He settled down and continued ordering. But when the new girl looked out from the kitchen, the creep spotted her and shouted across the restaurant, demanding to know why she wouldn't take his order and give him her number. She went back to the kitchen. My manager came out after hearing the noise, and I signaled them to call security. I told the creep he needed to leave. I was canceling his order, and no one would serve him. He refused to leave without the girl's number and asked if I knew who he was. I told him I didn't know or care, explaining that he wasn't going to harass my colleague. I said since he was closer to my age, he should know how inappropriate he was being, and that when someone says no, it means no. He compared women to witches who could be bought with money and said when a woman says no, you keep asking until she says yes. Security arrived. My manager pointed out the troublemaker. The security guard told him he needed to leave. The creep complained that he hadn't gotten the girl's number yet. I told him he wasn't going to get it and needed to leave. Finally, the creep left with security escorting him out. We arranged for a female staff member to drive the new girl home after her shift. Before putting her back on register duty, I checked if she felt comfortable continuing. She handled the rest of her shift well. Security later told us they banned the creep from the premises for 6 months. We added his photo to our Do Not Serve board. I found out this wasn't his first offense. He'd been kicked out of other places in the mall for similar behavior. Mall management extended his ban to a full year after collecting reports from affected businesses. It amazes me how some people think they're entitled to someone's time, attention, or personal information just because they're a customer. The customer isn't always right, especially when they're being predatory to staff. No one is entitled to a date or phone number from someone doing their job. I work at Mendy's fast food joint for about 3 months now. The pay isn't great, but my manager is decent and most of my co-workers are cool. Plus, I'm saving up for college, so every dollar counts. Last week we launched this new 2 for 6 deal. Customers can get 2 select menu items for just $6 total. It's a pretty good deal considering some of these items cost almost $4 individually. My training on the register system was minimal. They showed me the basics during my first week and everything else has been learn as you go. So there I was, working the drive-thru on a busy Thursday afternoon. Cars were lined up around the building and I was trying to keep up with the orders while also figuring out how to input all these new promotional deals into the system. That's when this guy pulls up to the speaker. He orders a grilled chicken sandwich for $6.40 and a 10-piece spicy nuggets for $5.64. He also throws in a drink. I take his order, give him the total, and tell him to pull up to the window. It wasn't until he arrived at my window that I realized both his chicken sandwich and nuggets qualified for our new 2 for 6 deal. Instead of paying over $12 for those 2 items, he could have gotten them for just $6. I decided to try and help him out. I told him I had just realized his chicken sandwich and nuggets qualified for our 2 for 6 deal and I wanted to adjust his order to save him some money. The customer just stared at me blankly. He was a middle-aged guy in an expensive-looking SUV, wearing sunglasses despite the cloudy day. I started fumbling through the register screen trying to find the right button to apply the deal. I'd never actually done this before, but I was determined to figure it out. When I'm searching through the menu screens, I suddenly hear this loud rapping on my window. The customer was knocking on the glass with his knuckles, looking annoyed. He complained that I was taking too long and told me to stop messing around and just take his money. His tone caught me off guard. Here I was, trying to save him money, and he's acting like I'm wasting his time. I looked up at him surprised. I explained that I was just trying to apply our promotion to save him some money. He responded that he didn't care about the promotion. He just wanted me to take his payment and give him his food because he had places to be. He thrust his credit card at me impatiently. At that moment, something inside me snapped. If he wanted to pay full price so badly, who was I to stop him? I told him the total amount would be $15.42. I took his card, processed the payment, and handed him back his receipt along with his card. As he started to pull away, I called after him that he should know he had just paid over double what he could have if he had let me apply the deal. His brake lights suddenly lit up, and he looked back at me through his open window. For a second, I thought he might reverse and ask me to fix it. Instead, he just shook his head and drove off. My co-worker, who was bagging orders next to me, burst out laughing. My co-worker asked if that guy had just chosen to pay extra money because he couldn't wait 15 seconds. I told her that was exactly what happened. My co-worker asked how much he had overpaid. I told her it was about $7.50. My co-worker calculated that was like 60% more than he needed to pay. I told her it was actually more than double what he would have paid for those 2 items was the deal. We both had a good laugh about it. For the rest of my shift, whenever we had a difficult customer, my co-worker would whisper that we should just charge them double since they probably wouldn't even notice. The next day, I was working the front counter when that same customer walked in. He didn't recognize me at first, but I definitely remembered him. He approached the register with a confident stride. He ordered a grilled chicken sandwich and a 10-piece spicy nuggets. I asked if he would like to take advantage of our 2 for 6 deal since those items qualified. He looked at me for a long moment, and I could see the wheels turning in his head as he realized I was the same person from the drive-thru yesterday. After a pause, he agreed that the deal sounded good. I told him that was a great choice and that it would save him over $7 compared to buying the items separately. I could see the realization on his face as he processed just how much money he'd wasted the day before because he couldn't wait a few seconds. His expression soured, but he didn't say anything else about it. As I handed him his receipt, I made sure to circle the savings amount at the bottom. I wished him a wonderful day and thanked him for his patience while I applied his discount. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.